My sister and brother-in-law just bought my husband and I tickets for the Phillies game. So we get
Next week?
No, it's actually in June, the one we're going to. But it'll be our first time seeing Bryce in a different uniform. It's going to take some getting used to. Yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, obviously they've got core people back, but just the personality just feels like it's different with,
I think they're going to do better.
okay, I'm going to hold you that.
Already so. If they stay healthy, I think they'll run away.
Ooh, I like that prediction. Yeah. Yes. My husband and I have gone to the 2 fifth games in the playoffs that they've lost. And we vowed we're not going to go to a playoff game again because clearly it's our fault. We bring the curse, so.
Being able to communicate my strongest asset in my organization. The ability to find the time. Right? I'm excited. I mean, all those things we learned about producing together, I do it every day. So nothing's wasted.
And then you work with Village Capital, and that's not the Village Bank, right?
I heard it's great.
So we identify entrepreneurs who are trying to solve business challenges. I used to saw Village, got really excited because I'm walking my little sister doing a commercial for Village. Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. I was just hoping that it was confused with the other everyone. We're much smaller. Okay, you make a bigger impact. And I was also a journalist. No way. That's awesome. Oh, you do? I'm sorry. I didn't get a chance to read all of it. So I run the firm. So we have a nonprofit and an investment fund, and I run the nonprofit that does all these sorts of things. Basically, we go out, we find the entrepreneurs, we run programs, we help them understand what the customers do. It was cool. So what are sectors, I guess, not missions, but all of that's what's your what's a big project? Yeah. So we want to set up entrepreneurs get more money for solving more career problems. So we look at yeah, a lot of like they start like helping people have money get their first degree faster. Not just helping.
We do a German food every year, or we do it.
We're lots of so we're Hi, Jason.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you? What's your name?
I'm Jade.
Good to meet you, Jay.
And Sean. How are you? I won't be interrupting you.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Panel. How's everybody doing today? Enjoying spring? The last one we did, it was freezing cold and threatening snow, so this is a good welcome change. Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Panel. And we have a wonderful panelists here, and they're here to talk to you. They want to give you information about entrepreneurial endeavors. And we have a wonderful faculty member here who will be moderating the panel. If I could ask you to please turn off your phones and put them on silent, just so that we can pay attention to the panelists. And I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, and we'll thank you very much.
Super, thanks. So I'm going to be talking into the microphone because this is being audio taped and videotaped for other students to watch later. Entrepreneurs have more ideas than they know what to do with. Ideas are constantly popping, and they wish that they had more than 24 hours in a day to advance causes, to write books, to run their business, to work in larger organizations. And what entrepreneurs have discovered is that their time and their attention are two of their most important assets. So my name is Elaine Vicora, and I teach in the business school. I'm a faculty member, full-time faculty member. I teach professional skills. Prior to coming to Mason about 2 years ago, I have had many different jobs, including running my own company for 10 years. And I, too, learned that very valuable lesson, that being able to control how I spend my time and how I devote my attention were the things that made me the most effective. Now, all of your time and attention are important. All of our panelists' time are important. But what I want us to do is to be a little intentional about how we spend this next hour, hour and a half together. All right? You're sitting there for multiple different reasons. Maybe you have a class assignment that you need to complete. Maybe you have some business ideas that you'd like to run by some people that are in the field. Maybe you know an entrepreneur and you just want to find out a little bit more about how they tick. Our panelists have different reasons. They're here perhaps because they want to have a meaningful conversation with at least one student. So before I introduce or have our panelists introduce one another, I want you to get locked in with why you're sitting in that chair. I want you to think about one thing that if you left here today that you learned, that you took away from, whether it be a business card, some ideas, whatever it may be. I want you to think about what that is. And I want you to take a moment and be intentional. So I want you to think. And when you have an idea of what would make this feel like a worthwhile investment of your time, I want you to raise a finger. I was going to say give me the finger, but just raise one finger, your one thing. And panelists, I'm going to ask you to do this as well. All right? I want you to really think about what will make this feel like a valuable use of your time. And because I knew I was going to ask this question, I already have a head start. So as you think of it, I'm going to ask you to just raise one finger. So congratulations, you have just embraced the entrepreneurial mindset where you're being intentional with two of your most valuable assets, your time and your attention. So I hope you do get what it is that you came away from wanting from this panel. And without further ado, I'm going to ask our panelists to spend a couple minutes introducing themselves. And then I have some questions that I'm going to ask them, and then we're going to open it up to your questions so that you can make sure your number one thing gets taken care of. Okay? Can you begin us?
Sure. Hello. My name is Michael Gallagher. I'm the founder and the president of a company called the Stevie Awards. I got my MBA at Mason in 1994, and I've been involved with the School of Business alumni chapter for 10 years now. I've been the president, the VP of events. I'm currently the head of the fundraising committee for the alumni chapter. And those of you who are School of Business students, I encourage you to get involved with your alumni chapter once you graduate. I'm very happy I was invited to speak about entrepreneurship today because I founded my company in 2002 after working for other people from the age of 16 when I first got my job at a supermarket until I was fired/quit my job as vice president of sales and marketing from a company here in Fairfax at the end of 2001. And I'm pleased to say that I've never felt like I've worked a day since the end of 2001, since I've had my own company. And I'm very passionate about sharing my belief in entrepreneurship and the benefits of being a business owner with students. So what the Stevie Awards does is we're basically the Oscars for business. We put on business award shows around the world. We have 7 of them now, 3 in the U.S., 4 in the U.S., 3 outside the U.S., and we get nominations from all sorts of organizations, including Volkswagen. We have a judge from Volkswagen as well this year. We get nominations from organizations in more than 70 nations, more than 12,000 nominations in total, and we have more than 1,000 people who participate in our judging process. So we've made a business out of that, and it's a lot of fun, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it later.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Williams. I'm the Senior Director of Diversity and Corporate Social Responsibility for Volkswagen Group of America. And I learned to say that all in one breath. You can be impressed. It's good. I may seem like an odd choice to be at an entrepreneurs panel, but there are many reasons why I'm here today. Number one, to let people know we are the only automotive company that is headquartered in this area. We've been here for 10 years and people still don't know we're here. So the automotive industry is more than just the dealer and more than just driving cars off of a lot and getting serviced. So hopefully I'll shed some light for you today on what a career in the automotive industry might be. But more importantly, having worked in the organization I just celebrated my 25th anniversary. I know, right? And now the countdown clock is on. And now I'm going the other way. But what's interesting for me, the automotive industry has undergone so many changes in the 25 years that I have been involved in it. And it is on the precipice of yet another change. The automotive industry is now faced with the idea of reinventing itself and talking about mobility as opposed to talking about automobiles, because we're dealing with a generation of people who may or may not ever drive a car by choice, right? And so when you think about what does it take to reinvent yourself as a company and as an industry, it takes individuals who are entrepreneurial in their mindset. And over the course of my career, I have done a lot of first things in the company. And I did them because I was looking for solutions while other people were just trying to put out fires. And that is what an entrepreneur does. I've branded myself in the organization. I've solved problems in the organization. And having an entrepreneurial skill set and mindset and drive are very important, especially in industries now that are reinventing themselves. So if you don't necessarily want to strike out on your own and launch your own company, think about how you can go into a corporation, into an industry such as ours. You can add value, you can learn, and you can take away a valuable set of skills for the day that you do want to strike out on your own. So hopefully we'll talk about some of that today.
Hi, I'm Allie Burns. I run a firm called Village Capital. We're a small but global firm based in DC, and we identify high potential early stage entrepreneurs who are solving significant social challenges, whether that's providing more affordable access to education, skills development, or democratizing access to the financial system, or providing a more sustainable food supply. So we identify those entrepreneurs and we provide hands-on training to help them better understand what investors are looking for when they're growing their business and actually help connect them to those investors and the capital that they need in order to be able to succeed. I will admit, I've never actually been an entrepreneur myself. I know I'm masquerading, but I've been a huge champion for entrepreneurs for my entire career. I spent the first decade of my career telling the stories of innovative early stage businesses who were taking big risks to try to solve really big problems as a communications professional. And then I went and worked for an investor for about 9 years before coming to Village Capital. And I'm a big champion not only of entrepreneurs and the companies they're building, but of the people who join them at the early stages. It's one of the hardest things to do is take a leap of faith and say, I'm going to join this entrepreneur and help them implement this vision, and also to help to keep the entrepreneur focused, as we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, that entrepreneurs do usually have lots of ideas, and the people that come alongside them are also responsible for helping keeping the train running. So I'm happy to talk about that a little bit today.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Jason Howell. I am a certified financial planner. Financial planning is probably my fourth career, and the company that I started, a wealth management firm aptly named Jason Howell Company, is probably my fifth business. So time, attention, ideas, yes, 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 for sure. So I'm a 97 grad of Mason, this very school of business, and I did graduate with an accounting degree and did that for a number of years, and did a lot of entrepreneurial things on the side to keep myself awake when it came to just doing accounting every day. And it's been a very interesting time. When you decide that you are entrepreneurial, you're deciding that you can do anything. So good for you. If you've decided that that's who you are and what you are, and whether you work in a large corporation or an organization that supports entrepreneurs, your anything is really important, and it's going to be a big part of changing the world. And that's what I want to do with my firm. So it's a wealth management firm. It's not just for multimillionaires, but it is for people who are really busy, people who are successful in their own right, typically two-income families where they've got some kids and they've got some dreams, they've done some saving, and they're smart enough to know that they don't know everything about finances and they don't have time to Google it all. And so they work with a firm like mine. And my big goal with my firm is more than just having a really nice wealth management firm, but it's to free people to go and take their ideas forward. What we need more in this country, in this world, are people who are exploring their passions and their ideas, and you can't do it if you're broke. And so I want to give them the tools. That's what I do.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deshawn Robinson Chu. I am CEO of SheEO. And my bio is in the paper, so I won't take too much time going into what SheEO does, other than the fact that we empower the CEO and every girl to take steps towards business leadership and ownership. I want to leave you today with a few points. Oh, I will be remiss if I didn't say this. Since we're at George Mason, I'm also on the board of the Women in Business Initiative here at George Mason. So for the female business students who need scholarship, mentoring, assistance, please see me afterwards. I want to leave 4 points with you. I know you're going to ask questions, but I want to start on this note. As we heard in the intro, entrepreneurs have an idea every second, and they don't sleep. I'm one of them. Sleep is something that I try so very hard to get. And did I say I was the mother of 3? 3 girls, by the way. But I want to leave you with this. An entrepreneur should do one thing to help them be successful, and that's plan. But I'm going to talk to you about it briefly in a different realm. Plan is spelled P-L-A-N. First, the P, have passion. As an entrepreneur, you have to have something that keeps you focused. So if there's something that really keeps you up at night, there's a reason why you're not sleeping. So if you're sleeping a lot, you're probably not entrepreneurial because you may not have that passion that you need. L, learn. You're here today because you want to hear more. You want to know more. You don't want to go into this blindly. There's a statistic that most businesses fail within the first year. 5 years. I would bet to say that they probably didn't go seek out resources or new information. The A, I would say action. Are you an entrepreneur or a wantrepreneur? Do you really, I'm sorry, did I touch a nerve? You need to take action with whatever you decide to do. I know a lot of folks that say they're entrepreneurs and they've had the same idea for 5 years and haven't done anything. And I will leave you with the N. Entrepreneurship and being successful is really all about the numbers. Who you're going to sell to, how often, how much are they going to buy, and how much profit you will make. Now, in order to get those PLAN, you probably need a plan on paper.
That's awesome. And actually, it leads me right into my first question, so thank you for setting that up. So I'm curious if you could weigh in on what you think are the skills and qualities people need to have that entrepreneurial drive and mindset. And if you have a short example that you can illustrate that with, that'd be awesome. So we're talking about skills and qualities. If I want to be an entrepreneurial, what kind of things do I need to think about doing, or am I doing it correctly?
Sorry, yeah, you're done.
Well, I would say, and we did touch on it a little bit, but I'll expand. The idea that you take ownership of what you're doing from start to finish. And even if you are in a corporate space like I am, I own my book of business, I call it. And I'm responsible and accountable from beginning to end. And I do not defer to other people, and I don't hide behind a team, and I don't I don't get lazy. You know, I own it. It's my book of business. I operate every day as if I have to get hired every day. In my mind, my performance review is not annual. My performance review is every day. And you have to have a mindset that you own. You own the process. You own the results. You own everything that happens, good, bad, or indifferent. You got to be responsible and accountable. And you really, you can't hide behind a team or my boss, or we like to say the Germans where I work. I own it. I'm responsible. And that's, like I said, that's the good and the bad. And I think first of all, you got to have that kind of determination.
Nice.
If you're a lousy employee, you may be an entrepreneur. I did a lot of stuff. I didn't start my company until I was 42, which is rather late, as you can imagine. And I had been vice president of sales and marketing for several companies, and as I got older, I always felt like I was living somebody else's life. I can't say I was a bad employee, but I wasn't happy as an employee. And as you begin your work life, and first of all, let me cut to the chase about entrepreneurship. You don't want to start a business right out of school. You want to learn your craft. You want to learn the industry that you want to work in. You want to make all the mistakes you're going to make on somebody else's dime before you don't want to make them on your own dime, right? So you want to learn your skill. You want to learn your craft. You want to learn the industry. So you want to do that first. But as you're doing that, if you have this nagging feeling that, you know what, I really don't want to be working for this person. I don't like this person. I don't like the people I'm working with. I really want to make all the decisions myself. If you're that kind of person where you basically, as Michelle said, you just want you want your hands on the steering wheel, you may be an entrepreneur. If you have, so as you go through your business career, you start your business career, if you kind of have that nagging suspicion that you should be doing something else, you may want to think about starting your own business at some point and start planning for that.
I really like what Michael said about having that idea and waiting and the like. I also like what Michelle said about the ownership piece. One of the things about being the CEO, the entrepreneur, is it's okay for you to fail, but it's not okay for you to quit. So you have to keep going or you starve to death, right? Or you go do something that you're not comfortable with, which may be go get a job or may file for unemployment or whatever it is. But there's no fallback when you've decided to be an entrepreneur, really. If you tell yourself there is, then you'll probably go to it. I get calls. I'm a financial advisor. There are thousands in this area. It's a great growing field. I get calls. I got maybe 2 or 3 calls this year for 6-figure jobs. Be a lot easier. And what I tell them is, you should have called me 2 years ago when I started, because it was really hard then. The first year is the hardest. But, now it's kind of hard. So, the comment I'll say is, it's not over as an entrepreneur until you win. So even if you fail, even if you run out of money, even if you lose a big client or you don't get a client you were thinking you were going to get, bad day, maybe bad hour, but you've got the next hour, and you've got the next day, and you keep going. That's part of what entrepreneurship feels like. That's what it is. And as far as a skill set, it would be grit. It'd be I'm able to get back up no matter what. Okay. Sure. CEO.
I want to add to what everyone has said thus far, but you did hear them say ownership. You don't eat if you don't work. If there's a skill set that I would say is necessary, but honestly you don't all have, so there probably is some self-reflection you need to have, is problem solving. Because entrepreneurship is all about not just solving the problem that will become your product, but solving the problems in your business so that you can stay open. And every day being the one that is going to figure that out. Now, does that sound like a lot of responsibility? It is. And so I like the grit piece, because you do have to have a stick-to-itness, if you will. But problem solving, entrepreneurship is not only about solving a problem that will become a product, but also solving the problems in your business so your doors stay open.
I was just going to add one thing that we look at when we're evaluating entrepreneurs to come into our programs is actually maybe a bit counterintuitive, is coachability. Very important, no matter if you're planning on taking outside money or not. If you are planning on taking money from somebody else, you absolutely have to be coachable, because those people are going to want to tell you what to do. That doesn't mean you're going to do what they tell you, but you have to be coachable. You have to be willing to listen to different perspectives. I think that's a big part of problem solving as well. So understanding that you can't just go by your gut, that there are times when you should, but having that right amount of coachability. And it's probably something you develop early in your career, even when you're not a great employee. maybe especially when you're not a great employee. So that's just something that we definitely look for and try to prod at when we're evaluating entrepreneurs.
Part of being able to solve problems, you solve problems within a context. If somebody put me in the middle of an operating room in a hospital tomorrow, I could not solve any of the problems in the operating room because I don't know anything about medicine and I haven't worked in an operating room. But if you know your industry, if you've got experience, if you know the type of business that you're starting, if you basically know what you already need to know, then you can solve problems within that context. So it really all comes down to experience. I just wanted to touch on something that Deshawn said when she made her introduction about most businesses, new businesses failing within 5 years or whatever it is. I can tell you from experience that really the two reasons that businesses fail is that A, when they did raise money, whether it's through an investment fund or even friends and family or taking money out of their own bank account, is that they don't have enough money. And that's part of the planning. You have to know how much money you need. And part of that comes from having the experience, working in the industry that you want to start a business in, and knowing how much money you need to get to the break-even point. The other reason businesses fail is they do give up too soon. Mm-hmm. And the reason they give up too soon is, and I'll tell you my story and some other stories very quickly, is they have very unreasonable expectations when they start the business on how quickly they're going to succeed. The revenue I thought I would have in my first year, I did not have till my 12th year in business. And one of our awards programs is for women in business, and I don't think there's a whiteboard in this room, but there's a lot of, there's electronic whiteboards around campus, and the company that is the market leader in whiteboards, electronic whiteboards, is called Smart Technologies, and they're in Calgary in Canada. And we gave an award in our Women in Business program maybe about 10 years ago to the woman who started that company with her husband. And we give everyone who wins an award a chance to make a very brief speech. And she got up on stage and she said that the revenue that she and her husband thought that they would have in their first year, they didn't have until their 10th year. Now, at that point, they were still already the leading whiteboard manufacturer in the world. But what does that say? When they didn't have the revenue after the first year, they didn't quit. When they didn't have it after the third year, they didn't quit. When they didn't have it after the seventh year, they didn't quit. So from my experience, meeting and evaluating a lot of young businesses around the world, those are the two reasons that business fail. One, from experience, not having enough money to get to break even. And a lot of businesses really just do pack it in too quickly.
Yeah, I heard a great line that you can write down and ascribe to me, but it wasn't me, because I won't tell you where I got it from. But you overestimate what you will make in your first year, but underestimate what you will make in 10 years. And that goes for almost all of your big goals. And between the 1 and 10 years, you can try to decide now, am I going to quit because I overestimated, or am I going to go ahead and wait? And 10 years, that's half your life. So you don't even know what 10 years actually feels like for real. But it's a long, long time potentially. And so, that's a big piece. One of the other things that Michael said a couple of conversations ago that I forgot and I wanted to bring up, that idea of taking a job out of school instead of necessarily starting a company. You can do that or you can do both. But I'll tell you, if you're 21, 22, or Mason, you're 31 or 42, getting your degree, it's not too bad to finally have a job that's paying you $50,000, $60,000 a year. Go hang out with your friends who are also making $50,000, $60,000 a year and have ideas about businesses, and also talk about how you hate your job and enjoy the first couple of years after studies. So when people come to me, and when they came to me when I worked for another financial firm, and they're like, oh, I'm an accounting person just like you, and they're offering me a job here where I work. And I knew they wouldn't pay him anything. I knew it would be all commission. I said, yeah, you're really smart. You're accounting and finance double major. Of course they want you. Take the job. And you can do that 0 years out of school, 0 years experience. They will pay you to know nothing except what you studied, and then you can learn some stuff. And so I really like that idea, and depending on the kind of company and the kind of idea you have, you could probably start your job or your companies on the side, which is what I did all of my years.
And I'll give another plug for going ahead and spending some of your skill set in corporate America before you move on, if you know going into it that you have these ideas and this thing you want to do, companies have 401ks where they match. Companies pay out bonuses. There's all kinds of ways, if you're being strategic in your thinking, that you can make that 4 or 5 years that you spend in corporate America work for you. Then you can get some of that money that you'll have as your cushion so that you're not tempted to quit in your first year. And that's a win-win, right? The company gets the benefit of your fresh thinking and the education that you just received. You get the benefit of sort of building your little nest egg so that when you do go out there on your own, it's not such a big, scary world.
Yes.
So is there anything that you guys wish you would have known before you started throughout your careers, whether it be entrepreneurship or anything business related that you either could have done differently or just any information that would have really helped you get to where you felt most successful?
And I'm just going to repeat that question for the tape. So basically you're asking the panelists to weigh in. Is there something they would have done differently or something that they wish they had known before they started their entrepreneurial ventures? Is that
Or just anything that could have gotten there? Yeah.
Can I?
kind of what she said? Yeah.
So, one of the things that I wish I had, I don't want to say known, but done, is started sooner. You heard I help girls start businesses at age 6. They haven't gone to high school. I sold candy out of my backpack in middle school. I came from a family of entrepreneurs, yet I didn't start my business till 2000. Well, I didn't start the third business. That is CEO. It's not on there. I wish I had started a real business in high school, not a out of my backpack business. We actually offer coaching programs, and last year we did a pilot coaching program. The girls who had products were 9, 10, 11, and the one girl who needed an IP attorney for her product was 11. So if there's anything I'd like to tell you is that you're here for an education. I have several degrees that I don't know if I use all of them, to be honest with you. But you don't have to wait. There are many ways for you to get experience on the job before you leave. My oldest daughter is a 19-year-old, third year at Hampton University in their 5-year MBA program, and she's helping us with our real estate investment company. So it's really up to you what you choose to do. And I would say to you, if there's anything I would have done sooner, not necessarily known sooner, is to start.
I would say just recognize right from the outset of your career that everything you do matters.
Yes.
You may take a job, and this relates to what Jason was saying. You may take a job out of college, and it's not really the dream job you wanted. It's not really what you know what it matters. You're going to learn something. You're going to meet people you're going to make lifetime connections. You're going to learn how an industry works. You're going to learn about office politics. You're going to learn about technology. Everything you do, even if it's not what you thought you would be doing, is important. And it's going to help make you the unique person you're going to be when you start your business, because you're going to have a unique set of experiences and skills and passions. So don't dismiss those introductory experiences in the business world, because they're all valuable. So even if it's not doing what you want, just kind of appreciate the ride and the journey that you're on.
Jade, I would have worked harder, which sounds trite, but harder and more efficiently. I would have pushed myself to be faster and good quality. I was in accounting, and accounting has this month-end closing period. So that all the great business owners that create businesses, at the end of the month, they want to know how they did. And the accountants, their job is to figure that out. So take all the numbers and clean them up. And so as an accountant, that was my job, clean up the numbers. And the goal was to get it done in 2 weeks or less. And I would get it done in 2 weeks or more. And doing that, I would stay really late after work because I wanted to get it done as everyone asked me to get it done. And I stayed late almost every night. And there was no reason for me to stay late every night. So it made work less pleasant because I wasn't going to the happy hours with the friends and commiserating about the job. I was all alone looking out the window, taking a break, and saying, man, I wish I was outside. And so it made my 9 to 5, number one, a 9 to 7:30. It didn't have to be, and it wasn't as fun. And so if I had learned then the value of really hard work, as opposed to aspiring to the value of like, can I outsmart this? It would have been beneficial then, and it would have been beneficial later. So when someone pushes you for that, don't push against it.
And I would also add, I was the youngest of 5 children, which was a horrible place to be in. I had 4 incredibly smart, successful, brilliant, bright siblings ahead of me. I was so paralyzed at the thought of failing. I didn't want to be the one who failed, right? And I'm looking up ahead of me at these 4 incredible people thinking, oh my God. But that fear, I was so paralyzed by it that I was not bold and I was not a risk taker early in my career. And if I could do one thing over, I would have started taking bigger swings earlier. And when I say earlier, I mean, before I had a mortgage, you know what I mean? Before I had dogs depending on me for their life, because I was just so afraid. I played it so safe, probably the first 6 or 7 years, because I just didn't want to fail. And the beautiful thing about failure is it's not over unless you quit. And everybody admires the person who falls down and gets up. And I wish when I was in my 20s, I wish I had taken bigger swings and been more of a risk taker, but I was so afraid of failing that I didn't even allow myself to really spread my wings. So I would have done that sooner.
I would second that 100 times over. But also add, one of the pieces of advice I got midway through my career, which I had gotten at the very beginning of my career, was build your own personal board of directors. There are lots of people who want to see you succeed. Find those people, surround yourself with them, spend time with them. They want to help you. Do that as soon as possible. Don't wait until you've been doing what you've been doing for 10 years and you're kind of like, am I going in the right direction? Do it now.
Yes.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you said, where you have siblings ahead of you who are kind of expecting to follow in their footsteps. And apart from that, I also see that I'm an accounting major, senior, super senior, and I see there's like a conventional path where you get your degree, you have an internship, that internship leads to a potential job, and then you just start working. Accountant becomes staff becomes senior becomes manager, and then it goes on. And in the middle of all of this, where do you, like, it kind of sometimes puts you in a box where there's no creativity, or it kind of puts you in a shell where you're, like, it forces you to be away from taking a swing, taking a risk, and moving forward. So how would you say would spark the motivation, or I wouldn't know how to word it properly, but like to ignite the spark where you can be creative, go ahead and take a big step, and get out of the traditional path?
I would say take the word someday out of your vocabulary. If you have an idea, even as you're doing your little traditional step by step, if there is a big idea that you have that you know and you keep saying, oh, when I'm 30 or when I retire or someday, forget someday. And I think we've already heard the beautiful advice. Carve out some time and do that on the side, right? I was a creative person most of my life until I went to work in corporate America. And then they sucked the soul right out of me, right? That's just how it is. But what I did several years ago was I launched a voiceover business because I needed to reconnect to my creative self. And I did that at night and on weekends. And now I'll be retiring soon, and I can go do that full time because I've built this business all along on the side of having my job. So find the nights, find the weekend, tap into your passion, whatever that is. Climb your ladder if that's what you feel you want to do, but make sure that you are feeding your passion when you have the time, and be intentional about carving out the time to do that.
Understand, too, entrepreneur does not mean you're the cover of Inc. magazine and your company has done $10 million and you're being celebrated. that is such a tiny fraction of the entrepreneurs, and it's the end of the rainbow, or maybe it's not the end for them, right? Like Mark Zuckerberg was offered $1 billion for Facebook by Yahoo 15, 20 years ago. Not 20, about 15 years ago. He turned it down. He was already on the cover of the magazine. That wasn't even the end of his rainbow, right? So you don't know at what stage you're seeing people on these magazines. You want to compare yourself to the person who's starting. And as all of us can tell you, that first year, most people are not becoming millionaires. It's just not how it works. Be very happy if you're in a major, and I was in your major, where there is a road. That makes it so easy to do the thing that you need, which is actually earn money to pay for stuff. And then you choose. We all have the same amount of time in the day and the week and the year. You choose. If you want to be an entrepreneur, then be an entrepreneur. And it just so happens you work 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 if it's public accounting, you got good grades. I didn't. Then, it happens to be a very late night for you because you care that much about being an entrepreneur. But if you've got a straight line, take the straight line. Enjoy the straight line. Go to happy hours, but maybe not all of them because you're working on a big project. Okay? And that goes for any of you. If you have a major where it's not a straight line, then figure out how to get a job. That's your first entrepreneurial job. Go figure it out. Get $50,000 a year, and then you can think and noodle and take 10 years to make some money in your business.
I would caution you as you go through your career to be woke. Be sensitive to how you feel about what you're doing. Do you enjoy your job? Do you enjoy working for a small company? Do you enjoy working for a big company? Do you like to solve problems that other people pose to you, or do you like to ask the questions and come up with the solutions? There's nothing wrong with following that path that you suggested might be open to you, but as you go through a path like that, be woke to that. Are you enjoying this? Are you looking forward to the next step on that particular journey, or maybe you want to step away from that, but you've got that experience that you can build on. Most of the panel have sort of are proponents of, if you got a business idea, go for it. I'm just the opposite. I think just because I like to eat out, I'm not going to start a restaurant. I don't know anything about the food service industry. I've never been a waiter. I've never managed a restaurant. Now, maybe if I had worked as a waiter and I had managed somebody else's restaurant, I know something about the industry. I know how much it costs to start a restaurant. I know, how long it's going to take to get a break even. I would say maybe I'm in a good position if that was my interest to start a restaurant. But just because you want to do something, you've got to be woke to whether you're really in a position to do that. Wanting to win American Idol doesn't mean you're going to win it just because you want it more than anybody else. You have to be able to sing.
I'll tell you, if you were in an operating room and I was on that table and something happened and all the doctors were gone, Michael, I would put a white coat on you. You would figure out a way to stitch me up because you're a creative entrepreneur. You would get it done. I would. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So better to have you than no one in there.
So I don't know if anyone's told you, most of the jobs in America are provided by small businesses. That's the truth. And so if you go and get a job following the skill sets you've developed in the discipline that you're studying here on campus, it's likely you're going to work for somebody who looks like that started a business and will help mentor you or be a part of the tribe that Allie is saying that you need to have around you, which I completely agree with. So think of, just because you're studying accounting doesn't mean you have to go work for a big accounting firm to be an accountant or to figure out kind of the be woke scenario of does this look like what I want? Let me go see it first in real time and then make my decision. So just keep that in mind.
Yes.
I would take failure out of your vocabulary because failure is terminal. Failure means you've stopped, right? I can tell you about the mistakes I've made. I mean, if you know your industry like I did, because I'd worked for 6 years for somebody else doing kind of the same thing. You make mistakes, but as Michelle said, you get up. I mean, this is what you do. There are missteps, and you fall down, and you lose some money on this, or you take a step back on this. But failure means you're dead. I mean, failure is terminal. So you don't really look at it that way. You look at, that's a setback. It cost me some money or it cost me some time, but you learn something from it. Failure is not something, if you have your own business, you don't even really think about failure.
Another great quote that you can ascribe to me for the rest of your lives. I never fail. I either win or I learn. If you don't quit.
I'm going to be the anti-person here. We actually say that you should fail fast and fix fast. Because if you fail, that means you tried something, right? And entrepreneurs, that's what we do is we try. There's actually a book, I was looking it up, by John Maxwell called Failing Forward. And so when you ask me what's my biggest failure, I've had several lessons that to everyday people might look like failures. But for me, that was an opportunity for me to try something that didn't work. And what I did, I learned a lot from it not working, and I didn't do those things the next time. And so while I think failure is a negative term, I want you to change your perspective, or as Michelle says, your mindset around what failure really is. It's an opportunity for you to try. How many of you ride bikes? Okay, how many of you fell the first time you rode your bike? Did you fail? Did you fall? And did you get back up and get back on? So the question about failure, biggest failure, I've had lots of what people might call failures. I call them lessons, and I'm going to follow John Maxwell, and I'm going to fail forward.
Good call to that, and I definitely want to hear what you're going to say about this too. That idea of failing fast is right on. Most of the time, the smartest people, George Mason students, are not going to succeed to some nth degree because you're too smart and you know that you might fail doing something. And the real thing that our Shiro said was to go ahead and fail fast, because if you do, you will learn, as I mentioned earlier, and it's that learning that takes you to another level. So go ahead and do it. That's something that most people don't do well quickly because they're afraid of the embarrassment. It's not embarrassing if you keep going. Go ahead.
I was going to say one of the mistakes I made twice early in my career was looking at a role in the organization that I wanted to try because I had interest and passion in it. But when I read the list of requirements and skills and things, I didn't check every box. And so I decided that I wasn't qualified for the role because I didn't meet every single criteria. And then I looked around 3 weeks later and I saw the idiot who got the role. And I was like, oh, really? Are you kidding me right now? So, waiting for that perfect fit, I've made that mistake twice. I never made it again. When I saw the people who got the role, I was like, okay, no, I'm just fine. I think it goes back to that overachieving, that perfection that drives us sometimes can be your worst enemy. Nothing in life is perfect. If you are passionate about something and you think you can do a good job, go ahead and take the swing.
Other questions? Yes.
So you all talked about using your time and your attention effectively and how it's one of your most valuable resources or two of your most valuable resources. You're talking about balancing personal endeavors and entrepreneurships with full-time jobs and things of that nature. So how do you all decide what is important and what deserves your time and attention?
Sales. I mean, that's what I've learned. I can tell you when I started, I was very interested in what tech I was using. Then I was interested in my planning for my business and my time and putting a calendar and an agenda and time blocking. I was interested in a lot of things because when you're an entrepreneur, there's everything. I mean, if it's just you to do. But at the end of each day and at the end of each 2 weeks, when you don't get a paycheck because you quit your job and you didn't listen to us to wait, that means a lot. And so sales, whenever I don't know what to do, I think, what am I doing for sales? Because that's what separates a business from a nonprofit.
And I would also say keep whatever your goals and objectives are somewhere where you can see them. And one of the things that I do all the time, because there's so many, the world is nothing but rabbit holes, right? You can just fall down. But if I'm spending too much time on something, I look back at my objective and I say, is this getting me where I need to go? And if it's not, it might be interesting and it might be fun and it might be what everybody else is doing. But I have to say, no, I have to switch direction because everything that I do should be moving me one step closer to my goal every day. And if it's not, even if it's fun, sometimes you just have to say no.
When you start a small business, you do everything. And as you grow, you share responsibility with your employees. So one of the things that you focus on is what are the things that only I can do? What are the only things that only I should do? What are my particular skills? Obviously, I've grown my business. We have 7 full-time employees now. We have dozens of contractors that work for us. And when I surrender responsibility, when I hire new people, I'm looking for people to take off my plate the things that I do that I should no longer be doing, so that I can focus more of my time and attention on the things that only I can do for the company because I have that skill set, or because I'm the owner, president, manager that I should be doing. And that's generally how you you grow your business, through these concentric circles of responsibility.
I don't know that I have that much to add, except to say that as you grow in your career, being very self-aware of what skills you have versus where do you want to hire people that are going to be better than you. That's the biggest part about growing a team, is identifying people on your team who are going to be far better than you at what they do. And so thinking about early in your career, I think being self-aware of how you build out the skills that you want to be really good at, and where you're like, you know what, I'm totally fine not being good at marketing, for example. So.
And that's a perfect pitch, Allie, to what I was going to say. This is a panel on entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is a person. So I would say focus on you. Because at the end of the day, if you're not happy, healthy, and whole, and you aren't doing remember the plan that's passionate about, something you're willing to stay up and learn about, that you're going to take action on because it means something to you and there's a real need for it, and the numbers make sense. Focus on you first. And get clear. Michelle talked about the vision. In CEO Academy, we do with the girls vision boards, dream boards. Some of you probably done this before, where they get clear on what it is that means the most to them. So I would say, to be able to focus in the business, you have to personally be focused first.
Did I see a question in the back? Yes.
Was it, where do you learn about yourself?
I think it's very similar to what Michelle said. I learned that I'm not brave enough not early enough. That I am definitely a person that my inherent nature is to want to fail, to not want to go through that embarrassment. But over time, you realize, okay, I was embarrassed for 10 minutes. It wasn't that big of a deal. I made a mistake, but I learned from it, and I'm going to do something different the next time. And starting to meet people who are totally reckless and have no fear of failure, and finding someone who can balance you out if you're a person that's more inclined to be afraid of failure. That's definitely something that I learned. So the person that founded our organization probably sits on the more I'm going to try all sorts of crazy stuff, and I don't really care if it doesn't work. And being able to learn from what's worked well for him in that approach, but also kind of keep that caution, and we kind of keep each other in check, has been really helpful.
Some wise person once quipped that when you're in your 20s, you worry about what everyone's thinking about you. And when you're in your 30s, you no longer care what other people think of you. And then when you're in your 40s, you realize no one was ever thinking about you in the first place.
So true.
So one of the things about the mistake, and I won't use the word failure because for me, failure means terminal. You make mistakes, you make missteps, you fall down, you get up. What you realize is nobody's watching you fall, really. No one's watching you get back up. It's just you. But to answer your question directly about what I learned from confronting challenges or missteps is how resourceful I am. I always thought of myself as a pretty creative person, with sort of creative solutions. But as I get older, I can amaze myself at how quickly I can come up with an answer to fix something. And it comes from, I probably could be your surgeon, sir. Yeah, now that I think of it. Your wife wouldn't want to hear that. But, it's not just because it's me. It's because I've been doing what I do for a long time, and I've gotten older, and, I have a pretty good memory, so I kind of remember what I learned along the way. And, you kind of build this inner vocabulary and this inner library of experience that you can call on.
I would also say, too, that, we all view the world through the lens of our own perspective and our own experience. And the one thing that I have learned is that I am the only one who has mine. I am the only one who walks into the room with my point of view, my perspective, and my experience, and it's worth something, and it's valuable. And again, I wish that's something I had learned earlier, but I'm happy to have come into that knowledge now.
One thing that hasn't been touched on quite yet is if you are starting a business, especially if you are not working somewhere and you are at home with your new business, it can be pretty lonely. And what I've learned is I really enjoy people, even as an accountant for about 8 years, even in the accounting department, which I used to work for the circus as an accountant. We had the 4th floor and it was gray. The other floors were colorful. One floor they made toys. Our floor was gray. But even with that gray floor, I got to talk to people and have some humor with people, and we did all kinds of things. And when you start something and you are alone on Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning, that's just different. And so I learned that I really enjoy people that matter to me, even as an accounting person, that it did matter to me. And it's one of the things you want to address, speaking to Miss Shiro over here, is what's important to you. You will find out what's important to you. You will find out if you overeat, because if you're at home and there's a kitchen, you may as well eat. You'll find out everything about yourself that you may not have noticed, that other people may have seen, and you're like, I don't know if they're right. But then if you start your own business, you're adulting pretty hard, you're going to see it all, and then you have to decide whether you like it, whether you're going to fix it, or whether you're going to ignore it, or whatever. So starting a firm or any kind of business is a very personal thing to do. It's a very introspective thing to do, and you do need to be willing to do that. The last thing I'll say about it is it's not too far off from having a kid. So two things I would never say you have to do. I would never say you have to have kids or that you have to start a business, because they're so personal that only you know if you can do it.
Yeah, my husband used to tell me, stop telling everyone they can start businesses, because that's some people not meant to do that. So you asked, what have we learned about ourselves? It sounds like so long ago, but several years ago, I won't tell you how long, I started to get really stressed out. And I'm just hyper, and I'm looking at everything in general. I'm always noticing opportunities, looking around. But I started to get sick and stressed. And as I started to process why I was developing this level of stress that became panic and anxiety, I found, through some introspection and the help of some really nice friends, that I wasn't managing expectations well. And I learned that about myself, that I had set everything in front of me, or my view was based on my expectations of what I thought should be the outcome, or what I thought people should do, and what I thought should be the result if I did A, B, and C. And so once I realized, I was like, oh, so life is really all about managing expectations in a very healthy way. And I learned that I wasn't doing that well enough, and now it's all about that for me.
So I think we have time for one more question. Do you still have a question?
Well, it wasn't really a question, it was a comment, and it's a digression at this point, but I was going to say that I really appreciate that you guys brought up the notion of specialization, focusing on what you do. I'm an econ student, not a business student. We have a professor who has a rhyme. He says, do what you do best, trade for all the rest. And if you read The Wealth of Nations, which I'm sure you have, it's like a hazing kind of experience for most college students. You realize that the book boils down to one main point, and that is that specialization is the key to wealth.
Terrific. Thank you. Any other last questions for the group? Yes?
Yeah, how do you go about planning your week and making the best use of your time?
I haven't done that well yet.
Well, I wouldn't recommend a tool. I'm personally, my calendar runs my life. And everything, whether it's a phone conversation, if it's a trip, if it's catching a flight, catching a train, driving into DC, everything lives right here. And so I'm a big fan on Sunday night. I look at the week ahead of myself. Am I going to have to speak somewhere? Do I have a presentation I have to give? What do I have to do? How much time is it going to take me to do it? And then on Sunday night, I'm lining up all those ducks. I'm a firm believer that if you are living for the day, you are a day behind. So my life is basically lived in 90-day increments. And I look at 90 days, and then I look at the 60-30, and then I look at Monday through Friday. And it all lives right here. Nothing's on a Post-it. I don't have a journal. I don't have a calendar on my refrigerator. You can't have things in multiple places. Whatever it is that's going to run your life has to be in one place, and you have to be able to look at it comprehensively. That's what I do.
I would just add one. I think there's no one tool that works for everybody. I've been on the search for that tool, and I've never found it. And lots of people will say, this works for me, but it doesn't work for me. But what I would say is, in addition to being very clear about how you're going to spend your time and intentional about how you're going to spend your time and planning out at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month or 90 days, that's very impressive. But also making sure that there is clear time for yourself. Like, don't overschedule. You've got to have time to think, to process for yourself. And you can schedule it, but making sure that you do, I think on days when I have meetings all day, back to back to back, I can't process. So that's really important too.
And I do block my time. That's mine. I block the walks I take with my dogs. It's all here.
Yeah, I would say schedule everything. I schedule everything, not just the big stuff, the little stuff. Like if I talk to Michelle today and I say, I'll follow up with you soon, I will put a tickler on my calendar for 10 days from now. It says, call Michelle. I'll put everything on there. Now, I will tell you a not so funny story about I was vice president of sales and marketing with an e-commerce company 22 years ago. And I was in charge of a small sales force. And I said, okay, we're going to get Goldmine, which is an early contact management system with sort of a fuzzy database. So you could not only put contacts in it and schedule activities around those contacts, but keep all the notes from all your talks and all this stuff. I still have that 22-year-old software program on my laptop. I still personally use that 22-year-old Goldmine program because it doesn't have all these DLL ties to the operating system. It just kind of is a package. I can just move it from computer to computer. It does what I need it to do. And I schedule everything. So when I open up Goldmine every day, it tells me the phone calls I'm supposed to make, the emails I'm supposed to send, the meetings I'm supposed to go to. Personal stuff like coming here today, I'll put on a schedule on my phone, but everything else goes in Goldmine. So it's a 22-year-old repository that's worth more than Tutankhamun's tomb to me.
So, again, whichever tool you use, but I started off talking about a plan, right? All I want you to think about in terms of time and what I spend my time on are things that I intentionally think about doing. And so to be intentional, that just means you have to take some time. Put it on your calendar, it's great, but you have to take some time and think, what is going to progress me towards my goal and accomplishing it? What are the things that need to get done to do that? How much time, skill set, resources do I have to do it? And then put that all down. There's a book I want to recommend called The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. And in this book, he talks about how he can get all the important things he needs to do done himself in 4 hours. And then he trades, schedules, outsources, all of the other things. And what that book for me meant, and what I think everybody on the panel is saying to you, our time is precious. And so we have to be intentional on how we use it, whether it's writing it down, using a calendar, having an assistant, what have you. We're going to do things with the precious time that we have that is going to get us closer to our goal.
And on that note, we are out of time. But I appreciate that note that you ended on in terms of intention. And at the beginning, I asked you to create an intention for what you would learn today. I'm going to be over in the corner, and for the first 2 people that come up to me and tell me that one thing that they got out of today, I've got a couple of Target gift cards for you. So share with me. Come talk to the panelists. They're here. We've got food. Network among yourselves. And I thank you, and I thank our panel. None of you are eligible.
But I do love me some Target.
Oh, yeah, we do.
I'm going to follow this.
Yeah, who knew, right?
Yes, I know. Your car for your voiceover business is going to be fabulous. I do have those. I do have those. You're recording? I do, in my house, yes. I have built it.
Before you give them all away like
Volkswagen's money.
This is smart. Hi, how are you?